See how to be working with texture aware medium and how to change a few information on the mechanics of this brush so that it becomes not only medium that gives you some color but as well a smeary type of medium. So we're going to start checking up this hard Stumpf from Pastel, Kreide und Kohle und Wachsstift. And at the moment we start painting with it, we can see that we have this texture from the paper very visible. And it's important, if you're working with a texture aware medium, for you to remember with which kind of paper you were using while working in this project. You have a few different types of paper which gives you a totally different aesthetic from the brush. And I used to have a favorite one. It was this abgenutzten Pflaster. Today I really like to be working with something that is more basic, and you can as well like increase and decrease the size of this texture if you would like it to be less present on your illustration. I like to work in a combination of tools, so I'm going to be opening a new layer since I want to be working with transparency, and I'm going to click on Wachshaber, which is on feathers and pencils quite low. I'm grabbing like a middle tone, and I'm going to be illustrating an apple with you in this tutorial. So I'm just making this quite simple, filling it up, decreasing the size of my brush to do this little shape underneath it. Well, it's not really so nice, but still. Okay. I don't know why I think I'm just doing too much effort in here. It's smaller. I'm just making like a background. You do this a lot on painting, so that you just start working with a background and then you put some color on top of it and some texture. And like this you can get like a nice strong edge coming through here. You can work with a lot of texture so that you're delimiting it with this very hard edge. I'm going back to the tool we were working before with Hard Stumpf, and I can, through the brush mechanics from this brush that we select and open up here in these two buttons, we understand which kind of brush we have, looking at the depth of the brush, so that we can start doing a few changes in here so that it works the way we would like to have it. I'm grabbing up another color, a lighter one, so again moving to yellow to have a warmer, lighter color and getting a little bit of tint on it, so a little bit more white on it, increasing the size of my brush. And at the moment I start working, you can see this is a brush that gives me a lot of texture. This is nice and it works already really good the way it is, but I would just like to do a few changes for us to be working with this in another way. Since pastel, it's a medium that you like to be kind of mixing things a little bit, I would say let's check a few qualities of this brush. The first one would be, we have here 10% of depth that the color goes through into the paper. We can increase this number and you can see that we get less of the texture coming through. And if you would like to have more texture coming through this brush, you can just decrease this number. If you would like to have this brush just adding color, you have another possibility to be working with, and it would be here to select the strength or the amount of color that comes through the brush through resaturation, and we have this here on 90%, and we can have a brush that gives me a lot of color. If I do more pressure, I just have like a full color coming through, and if I do less pressure, I have just more texture coming through, which is very good and interesting. But sometimes we would just really like to have something that starts being a little bit smeary and still has this kind of pastel quality, but mixed up things a little bit more. So instead of having resaturation so high, I would go down on resaturation and I would go up with Anlösungsstärke or blending. And here I would start getting a brush that is much more smeary and does not really add much color. It's just really kind of blending more. So you could probably go up and down here and start painting. You're going to see that we have here the option as well to work on the Umsetzung, and we have here pressure, so we can as well in Painter do something which is called changing the quality of the pressure. So at the moment you have it here, the less pressure you do, the less amount of color you get from your brush. The more pressure you do, the more amount of color you get from this brush. But if you combine this with the bleeding or with the blending, you're going to have the option of saying, okay, the more pressure you do, the more color comes out. The less pressure you do, the more you start blending the color. So this is a very nice thing to be working with. So this is working fine. I'm just grabbing a little bit more from a kind of lighter color, and at the moment you start getting enough color on your illustration, you can just start using the colors from it without having to pick them up again and again from this circle. So I'm just going a little bit down here to have it a little bit darker. If you have the impression that the brush is just too large, you can decrease the size of the brush. And I'm just going to pick up something more brownish, less red, to be working here on the steel. You can turn off Safe Transparency, maybe open a new layer, and we can try to do a little lift. You can see that this is not working, which is very good to look right now. This is blending, so it's just going to be working if instead of just opening a new layer, it would work if we were working on the same layer, but since we open a new one, we have to say pick up underlying color, and now you can see the difference. You don't have this kind of white edge coming through. And like this we can nicely be working here. Save transparency again. Now I can just start playing around here a little bit, maybe increasing the size of the brush so that it's not so present. Like this. Make the edge a little bit darker. Okay, so this is kind of playing around a little bit. It's quite nice to use this kind of tool because it's quite a simple tool. We have always to remember when we work with Safe Transparency that at a certain point we really have to turn on and off. I'm working on the wrong layer, I know, but I can change the position of the layer. And we have a little shadow going on here. I could as well bring up a little shadow underneath the apple. Okay, well, it's not exactly what I wanted, but it gives you an idea how to be working with layers together with this kind of tool. This is just too low. And how you can start blending up and adding color with the pastel tool. And if I open a new layer, reminding you to always have Hintergrundfarbe übernehmen active. We can as well, instead of going up and down with this information, we can as well use, well, it's really close to Kreide, the mixing tool, and we have here two options that I really like. One of them is the wet with the paper structure, and the second one is just the wet. I like to use the wet with paper structure, and like this I can be blending the colors a little bit together. It's very smooth. I think that with the other tool I would be a little bit harder on this information, and you can see that if I move my layer to the side, oops, I've moved the wrong one, but here you can still see everything that I was blending together is there. So I'm just turning this off, and you can see that I was blending using the information, the color information from the layer underneath it in a new layer. Okay, and this is just because I was using pick up underlying color. So it's important to remember that this works only in a different layer if you have this information on. Okay, I hope you had some fun, and it's really nice to be combining tools to reach your goal, and we're going to talk to each other again in the next tutorial. Bye!